The waitress had no idea her tattoo was a map to the Mafia boss's stolen fortune. When he saw it, he grabbed her wrist and whispered, "You just became the most dangerous woman in Chicago." He swore to protect her and stole his heart instead. The dinner rush at Valentino's was in full swing, and Mia Chen's feet were screaming. She'd been on her feet for 9 hours straight, her sneakers worn so thin she could feel every crack in the tile floor. But rent was due in 3 days, and she was still $200 short. "Table 7 needs refills," her manager barked from behind the bar. Mia grabbed the wine bottle and weaved through the crowded restaurant. Monday nights were usually dead, but tonight every table was packed. Something felt off. The usual chatter was replaced by tense whispers. Men in expensive suits clustered at corner tables, their eyes constantly scanning the room. She approached table 7 with her practiced smile. "More wine, gentlemen?" The man at the head of the table didn't look up. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with dark hair slicked back and a jawline that could cut glass. His charcoal suit probably cost more than her entire year's rent. 3 other men sat with him, all built like linebackers, all watching the room like wolves. "Just water," the dark-haired man said, his voice low and controlled. As Mia poured, her sleeve rode up slightly. She didn't notice. She was too focused on not spilling, not messing up, not losing this job like she'd lost the last 3. The man's hand shot out like a viper. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, not rough, but firm enough that she couldn't pull away. The water glass tipped, spilling across the white tablecloth. Mia's heart hammered as she looked down at him. His gray eyes weren't on her face. They were locked on the inside of her forearm, where a spiral tattoo curved from her wrist to her elbow. Black ink, intricate and strange, like a maze that folded in on itself. "Where did you get that?" His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a threat. The entire restaurant seemed to freeze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the kitchen noise faded. Mia felt a dozen pairs of eyes burning into her back. It's just a tattoo," she stammered. "Can you please let go?" "Answer the question." He stood slowly, still gripping her wrist. He was tall, easily 6'2", and the way everyone in the restaurant tensed told Mia exactly who he was. Luca Romano. The name whispered in dark corners, printed in careful euphemisms in the newspaper. The man who owned half of Chicago's underground. The man people crossed the street to avoid. "I got it 5 years ago," Mia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's from a sketch I found in my dad's things. He died when I was 16. It's just something he drew. Please, you're hurting me." Luca's grip loosened slightly, but he didn't let go. His eyes traced every curve of the spiral, and something flickered across his face. Recognition. Then anger. Then something that looked almost like fear. "Your father's name," he demanded. David Chun. He was a locksmith. He didn't. "He worked for my family." Luca's voice cut through her rambling. 20 years ago. Then he disappeared with something that didn't belong to him. Mia's blood ran cold. "That's not possible. My dad was just—" "Your father," Luca interrupted, his gray eyes boring into hers, "stole the location of my family's vault. $300 million in assets hidden before my grandfather was murdered. That mark on your skin? That's the key." The room tilted. Mia shook her head. "No. You're wrong. My dad was a good man. He wouldn't." A window exploded. Glass showered the restaurant as gunfire erupted from the street. Mia screamed as Luca yanked her down, his body covering hers as bullets tore through the dining room. His men returned fire, the deafening cracks making her ears ring. "Move." Luca hauled her up and dragged her toward the kitchen. His men formed a barrier around them, guns drawn, as they crashed through the swinging doors. The kitchen staff had already fled through the back exit. "What's happening?" Mia sobbed, stumbling as Luca pulled her forward. "The Volkov brothers," one of his men shouted. "They knew she was here."
"How?"
Luca snarled, shoving Mia into the back seat of a black SUV waiting in the alley. He climbed in after her, and the vehicle peeled out before the door even closed. Mia pressed herself against the opposite door, shaking. Let me out. Let me out right now. You'll be dead in 20 minutes if I do, Luca said coldly, straightening his jacket. There was blood on his sleeve, not his. That tattoo? Every major family in Chicago has been hunting for it for 2 decades. Your father hid the only map to the Romano fortune, and somehow the Volkovs found out you have it. I don't have anything. Mia's voice cracked. It's just a tattoo. I don't know anything about a vault or your money. Luca turned to face her fully. In the dim light of the passing street lamps, his expression was unreadable. Then you're going to help me figure out what your father did. Because that mark? He gestured to her arm. That's either going to make you the richest woman in Chicago or get you killed by Thursday. You can't just kidnap me. I just saved your life. You're the reason they were shooting. Your father is the reason, Luca corrected sharply. I'm the only thing standing between you and a bullet. So here's how this works, Mia-chan. You stay under my protection, you help me decode that mark, and we find the vault. Or you walk out that door right now, and I give you 3 hours before someone else finds you. Your choice. Mia looked at the door handle, then at the dark Chicago streets flying past, then back at Luca Romano's cold, gray eyes. She knew she had no choice at all. Where are we going? She whispered. Somewhere safe. Luca turned away, already pulling out his phone. Marco, I need full lockdown at the estate. No one in or out without my clearance. And find out how the Volkovs knew about the girl. As the SUV merged onto the highway, Mia touched the spiral on her arm, the tattoo she'd gotten to honor her father's memory. She'd always thought it was just a beautiful design. Now it might be her death sentence. The Romano estate sat behind iron gates and stone walls, hidden in the wealthy suburbs north of the city. Mia had seen houses like this in movies, sprawling lawns, fountain in the circular driveway, columns framing the entrance like some modern-day palace. It looked nothing like the cramped studio apartment she'd left behind. Luca's men escorted her through marble hallways into a library that smelled of leather and old money. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, and a massive desk dominated the center of the room. Luca gestured to a chair across from the desk. Sit. Mia remained standing. I want to call my roommate. She'll worry if I don't come home. You're not going home. Luca poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. Not until we finish this. You can't keep me here against my will. That's kidnapping. He took a slow sip, studying her over the rim of his glass. You're right. The door's that way, he pointed. Marco will drive you anywhere you want. But understand this. By tomorrow morning, every crew in Chicago will know about that tattoo. They'll tear the city apart looking for you. Mia's defiance wavered. The memory of shattering glass and gunfire was too fresh. She sank into the chair, hugging herself. Good, Luca set down his glass and leaned against the desk. Now, tell me everything about that tattoo. Don't leave anything out. I already told you. You said it came from a sketch. Where's the original? Mia hesitated, then reached beneath her collar and pulled out a thin silver chain. A small locket dangled from it, tarnished and dented, the only thing she had left of her father. It's in here. The sketch was folded up inside when I opened it after he died. Luca's eyes sharpened. Let me see it. No, Mia clutched the locket protectively. This is all I have of him. Your father worked as a locksmith for my family's operations. He had access to every safe house, every secured location. Then one day in 2005, he vanished. 2 weeks later, my grandfather was killed in a deal gone wrong, and the vault's location disappeared with him. Luca's voice was cold, matter of fact. Your father was the last person to see the vault's blueprints. My dad wasn't a criminal, Mia said fiercely. He fixed locks. He came home every night. He coached my soccer team. And he stole from us. Luca pushed off the desk and stepped closer. That locket. Now. Make me. They locked eyes. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, to Mia's surprise, Luca stepped back. Your father also had a bullet wound in his shoulder, he said quietly. I know because I found the hospital records from 2005. He checked in under a fake name, paid cash, and disappeared again.
Someone shot him, Mia.
Someone who wanted what he took. The air left Mia's lungs. She'd always known her father had a scar on his shoulder. He told her it was from a car accident when she was little. Just another lie in a life she was starting to realize she'd never really understood. With shaking hands, she unclasped the locket and opened it. Inside was a folded piece of yellowed paper, no bigger than a postage stamp. She'd copied the design onto her skin because it was beautiful, because it was his, because she'd wanted to carry a piece of him with her forever. Luca took the paper carefully, spreading it flat on his desk under a lamp. The spiral was drawn in faded ink, but around the edges were tiny notations, numbers, letters, symbols she'd never been able to decipher. He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo, then sent it to someone. Seconds later, his phone buzzed. Marco confirmed it, Lucas said, his voice tight. These markings match the encoding system my grandfather used. Your father didn't just see the vault's location. He copied the access code. Why would he do that? Mia whispered. If he stole from you, why not just take the money and run? Because he couldn't open it alone. The vault requires 2 keys, a code and a physical mechanism. My grandfather had the mechanism. Your father had the code. Luca looked up at her. I think he was trying to protect it. Or maybe buy his way out. We'll never know. He's dead, Mia said hollowly. He died of a heart attack when I was 16. So whatever he knew died with him. Not quite, Luca tapped the sketch. He left this for you. Which means he wanted someone to find it eventually. The question is why. Maybe he felt guilty. Or maybe he knew someone would come looking. Luca folded the sketch carefully and handed it back. Keep it. You're going to need it. For what? To decode it. He sat on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. That spiral is a map, Mia. Those notations are coordinates, or directions, or clues to something. And you're the only person who can help me figure it out. I don't know how to decode anything. I'm a waitress. You're David Chen's daughter. Luca's gaze was steady. Which makes you my only lead to $300 million. So here's what happens next. You stay here, under my protection. You work with me to figure out what your father hid. And when we find the vault, you walk away with enough money to never serve another drink in your life. And if I refuse, then you walk out that door, and I can't help you. His voice softened slightly. But those men who shot up the restaurant, they're not the only ones hunting for this. The Bratva, the Triads, the Moretti family, they'll all want a piece of you. You won't survive a week. Mia looked down at the locket in her hand. Her father's last gift. His last secret. She thought about the tiny apartment, the unpaid bills, the endless double shifts. Then she thought about the gunfire, the terror, the cold certainty that she'd almost died tonight. How long? She asked quietly. However long it takes. And you promise you won't hurt me? Luca's expression was unreadable. I promise I'll keep you alive. That's the only promise I can make. It wasn't reassuring. But as Mia looked into his gray eyes, she realized he was telling the truth. In Luca Romano's world, survival was the only currency that mattered. She closed the locket and tucked it back under her shirt. Fine, she whispered. I'll help you. Luca nodded once. Welcome to the family business, Mia Chen. Mia couldn't sleep. The guest room Luca had given her was bigger than her entire apartment. King-sized bed, attached bathroom, a view of the gardens through French doors. But luxury didn't erase the fact that she was essentially a prisoner. She sat on the bed, still wearing her wine-stained work uniform, staring at the locket in her palm. Who were you, Dad? She thought. What did you do? She'd been sitting there for maybe an hour when she heard it, a soft crack from somewhere outside. Then another. Not gunshots. Something quieter. Like branches breaking. Mia went to the window and peered out into the darkness. The estate's floodlights illuminated the lawn, but beyond them, the trees were black and dense. She saw nothing. Then a shadow moved. Her breath caught. Someone was out there, creeping along the perimeter wall. Then another shadow. And another. "Oh God," she whispered. The door to her room burst open. One of Luca's men, she thought his name was Tony, stood there with a gun drawn. "Get down.
Now.
What's happening?" "They're here." He grabbed her arm and pulled her into the hallway just as the French doors behind her exploded inward. Glass showered the room, and dark figures poured through the opening. Tony shoved Mia toward the stairs. "Go. Get to the safe room." "Where?" Gunfire erupted. Tony returned fire, backing toward the stairs as bullets chewed through the walls. Mia ran, her heart in her throat, taking the steps 2 at a time. She could hear shouting, breaking glass, more gunfire from all directions. The estate had become a war zone. At the bottom of the stairs, Marco appeared, pulling her toward a reinforced door beneath the main staircase. "Inside. Don't come out until someone gives the all-clear." "What about Luca?" "He can handle himself." Marco pushed her through the door and slammed it shut. Mia found herself in a small, windowless room lined with monitors showing security feeds from around the estate. She watched in horror as armed men swarmed the property. They wore dark tactical gear and moved with military precision, nothing like the clumsy shooters from the restaurant. On one screen, she saw Luca emerge from his study, gun in hand, flanked by 3 of his men. He moved like he'd done this 1,000 times before, calm, controlled, deadly. He dropped 2 attackers before they even knew he was there. The assault lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, 6 bodies lay scattered across the estate grounds. Luca's men dragged them away like they were taking out the trash, efficient and emotionless. On the monitors, Mia watched Luca survey the damage, his jaw tight, his suit jacket discarded, and shirt sleeves rolled up. The door opened. Marco stood there, a cut above his eyebrow but otherwise unharmed. "You can come out." Mia's legs shook as she climbed the stairs. The main hallway was destroyed, bullet holes in the walls, shattered paintings, blood on the marble floor. 2 of Luca's men were wounded but alive, being tended to by others. And then she saw Luca, standing in the center of the chaos, talking quietly on his phone. Something inside her snapped. "This is your fault." Mia marched toward him, fury overriding her fear. "You brought me here. You made me a target." Luca held up a finger, "Wait," and continued his conversation. That dismissive gesture made her even angrier. "Don't you dare ignore me." She shoved his shoulder. "I could have died. Your men could have died. All because of some stupid treasure that probably doesn't even exist." Luca ended the call and pocketed his phone. His gray eyes were cold as winter steel. "Are you finished?"
No.
"I want to go home.
Right now.
I don't care about your vault or your money or—" "There is no home to go back to." His voice cut through her rant like a blade. "The Volkovs just hit this place with 12 men. They knew exactly where you were, which means someone talked. Which means every crew in Chicago knows you're connected to the vault by now. So what? I'll leave the city. I'll go to—" "Where?" Luca stepped closer. "Los Angeles? New York? You think the Bratva doesn't have people there? Or the Triads? Or any of the dozen other organizations that would love to get their hands on $300 million? He gestured to her arm. "That mark makes you a walking treasure map. There is nowhere you can run that they won't find you." "Then remove it." Mia's voice broke. "I'll get it lasered off. They already know you have it." "Removing it doesn't change anything." Luca's expression didn't soften. "You want someone to blame? Blame your father. He's the one who copied the code. He's the one who put that mark in your locket. He's the one who made you valuable. Don't you dare talk about my father. Your father put a target on your back the day he decided to steal from my family." Luca's control finally cracked, his voice rising. He knew what he was doing. He knew the risks. And then he went home and played soccer dad like he wasn't hiding the location of a fortune that men would kill for. Tears streamed down Mia's face. "He loved me. He wouldn't. He loved you enough to die with his secrets." Luca's voice went cold again. but not enough to protect you from the consequences. So here's the reality, Mia. Your old life is gone. Your apartment?
Your job?
Your friends? You can't go back to any of it without putting everyone around you in danger. The only way forward is through. We find the vault. We end this. And maybe you survive. And if I refuse to help? Lucas stared at her for a long moment. Then you're dead by Friday. And frankly, so am I, because every family in Chicago will come for what's mine. He turned away. Marco will show you to a new room. The French doors are being replaced. That's it. Mia's voice was hollow. You're just going to keep me here like a prisoner? Luca paused, looking back over his shoulder. I'm keeping you alive. Your father put that mark on you. I'm the only reason you're still breathing. With that, he walked away, leaving Mia standing in the ruined hallway, surrounded by bullet holes and blood, her entire world shattered like the glass beneath her feet. She touched the locket under her shirt and wondered if her father had known, if he'd understood what his secrets would cost her. And for the first time in her life, Mia wasn't sure she could forgive him. By morning, Luca had assembled a team. Not his usual enforcers, but specialists, a cryptographer, a historian who'd worked with the Chicago Historical Society, and an elderly man named Vincent, who'd served Luca's grandfather 40 years ago. Mia sat at the dining room table, the sketch from her locket projected on a screen, while strangers analyzed her father's handwriting like it was the Rosetta Stone. These numbers here, the cryptographer said, pointing to a sequence along the spiral's outer edge. They correspond to street addresses using the old Chicago grid system before the 1909 reorganization. And these symbols? Luca asked. Locksmith notation, Vincent said, his voice weathered with age. David was clever. He hid the code in plain sight. Anyone else would see random marks. But to another locksmith, it's instructions. Mia leaned forward. Instructions for what? Pin configurations, tumbler patterns. Vincent traced his finger along the spiral. But they're only half the equation. These lead somewhere, physical locations where the rest of the code is hidden. Where? Luca demanded. The historian adjusted his glasses. If I'm reading this correctly, the first address corresponds to a location that no longer exists. But in 2005, there was a church there, St. Matthias Cathedral. It was abandoned after fire in 2003. Luca's jaw tightened. I know that place. My grandfather used it for meetings before it burned. That's not a coincidence, Mia said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. My dad. He used to take me to churches when I was little.
I never understood why.
We weren't religious. But he'd spend hours just walking around, looking at the architecture. He was scouting locations, Luca said. Finding places to hide the next clue. Vincent nodded. It's a breadcrumb trail. Smart man, your father. He knew if something happened to him, someone would eventually follow the marks. Someone like me, Mia whispered. Can we access the cathedral? Luca asked the historian. The city condemned it years ago. But structurally, it should still be standing. Then we go tonight, Luca stood. Mia, you're coming with me.
What? Why?
Because if your father left clues that only a locksmith would understand, I need someone who thinks like him, his gray eyes fixed on her. You have his instincts whether you know it or not. The cathedral loomed against the night sky like a skeletal hand reaching toward heaven. Its windows were boarded up, its bell tower crumbling. Mia shivered despite her jacket as Luca's SUV pulled into the empty lot behind it. Marco, Angelo, perimeter watch, Luca ordered as they exited the vehicle. Tony, you're with us. Mia followed Luca through a side entrance, the lock picked in seconds by one of his men. Inside, the cathedral was a graveyard of forgotten faith, pews covered in dust, fragments of stained glass crunching underfoot, graffiti marring the walls. What are we looking for? Tony asked, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Something that doesn't belong, Luca said. David Chun would have left a mark. Something permanent. They spread out, searching. Mia wandered toward the altar, her footsteps echoing. The fire damage was worst here. Blackened walls, collapsed sections of roof. the smell of old smoke still faint in the air. Then she saw it. Behind the altar, partially hidden by debris, was a fresco painted directly on the wall. Most of it was destroyed by fire, but one section remained intact, a depiction of St. Peter holding a set of keys. But these weren't ordinary keys. They were covered in symbols. "Luca," Mia called. "Over here." He appeared at her side, studying the fresco. "Your father's work? Look at the keys," Mia pointed. "Those symbols, they match the ones in the locket. But there's more here. Numbers painted into the design." Luca pulled out his phone and took photos from multiple angles. "Tony, get the cryptographer on the line. I'm sending him these images now." While they waited, Mia studied the fresco more closely. Something about it felt familiar, like a memory just out of reach. "My dad had a keychain," she said suddenly, "with St. Peter on it. I always thought it was weird because we weren't Catholic." "He was leaving you clues your whole life," Luca said. "Preparing you." "For what?" "I was 16 when he died. What was I supposed to do? Survive long enough for someone to find you?" Luca's phone buzzed. He listened, then nodded. "Understood." He ended the call and turned to Mia. "Those numbers reference tunnel coordinates. There's an old bootlegger network under this part of the city. My family used them during Prohibition. My grandfather sealed most of them after the FBI started sniffing around in the 80s, he continued. But if your father had access to our security systems, he'd know which ones were still usable." Mia's heart raced. "So we go underground." "We go underground." Luca headed toward a door behind the altar. It opened to reveal stone steps descending into darkness. Tony went first, gun drawn. Luca gestured for Mia to follow, then brought up the rear. The stairs seemed endless, spiraling down into the earth. The temperature dropped with each step, and the air grew thick with moisture. At the bottom, they emerged into a tunnel, brick-lined, maybe 6 feet high, stretching in both directions. "Which way?"
Tony asked.
Mia closed her eyes, thinking. Her father had been meticulous, logical. He wouldn't have made this impossible. She pulled out the locket and opened it, studying the sketch in the flashlight's glow. The spiral curved to the right. "This way," she said, pointing right. "You sure?" Luca asked.
"No."
"But it feels right." To her surprise, Luca nodded. "Then we follow your instinct." They walked for what felt like miles through the labyrinth, Mia leading based on nothing but intuition and her father's cryptic map. At every intersection, she chose a direction, and every time, they found small marks carved into the brick, confirmation they were on the right path. "How are you doing this?" Tony asked, impressed despite himself. "I don't know," Mia admitted. "It's like I can hear him telling me where to go." Finally, they reached a dead end. But carved into the wall at eye level was a familiar symbol, a spiral, identical to the one on Mia's arm. "Here," she breathed. Luca ran his hands over the bricks. "There's a mechanism. Something that opens from this side." He pressed, prodded, then looked at Mia. "Your father was a locksmith. Where would he hide the trigger?" Mia studied the wall, then noticed one brick was slightly darker than the others, stained, maybe, or made of different material. She pressed it and felt it give. With a grinding sound, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a small cavity. Inside was a metal box, sealed with a combination lock. Luca reached for it, but Mia's hand shot out, stopping him. "Wait," she said. "Look at the lock." The combination dial had symbols instead of numbers, the same symbols from her locket. "Your father's final test," Luca said. "Can you open it?" Mia's hands shook as she began turning the dial, matching the sequence from the spiral tattoo on her arm. Each click echoed in the tunnel like a heartbeat. The lock popped open. Inside the box was a single photograph, yellowed with age. It showed her father, much younger, standing beside an older man in an expensive suit. Behind them was a building Mia didn't recognize. Lucas stared at the photo, his face pale. "That's my grandfather. And that building," his voice went hoarse. "That's where the vault is." Mia turned the photo over. On the back, in her father's handwriting, "Forgive me, Back at the estate, Luca pinned the photograph to a board in his study alongside the decoded symbols and tunnel maps. The building in the picture was an abandoned opera house on the south side, the Teatro Magnifico, closed since the 90s. Mia stood by the window, exhausted but unable to rest. They'd been at this for 3 days now, and every clue her father left behind only raised more questions. Why would he ask for forgiveness? She asked quietly. Luca didn't look up from the map he was studying, because he knew what his choices would cost. But what if? Mia turned. What if he wasn't stealing from you? What if he was protecting the vault? That got Luca's attention. Explain. You said your grandfather was killed in 2005. Right around the time my dad disappeared, Mia moved closer to the board. What if someone was trying to force your grandfather to reveal the vault's location? What if my dad took the code to keep it from falling into the wrong hands? Then why not come back after my grandfather died?
Luca challenged.
Why hide for 15 years? Because whoever killed your grandfather would still be looking. Mia's voice grew more certain. My dad was shot, Luca. He was running from someone. Maybe he was trying to protect both of us. Your family's fortune and his own daughter. Before Luca could respond, the door burst open. Marco strode in, his expression dark. We need to talk.
Alone.
Luca's jaw tightened. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of her. That's the problem. Marco's eyes flicked to Mia with barely concealed hostility. She's a liability. Every day she's here, we're exposed. We lost 3 good men in that attack, Luca. 3. And for what? A treasure hunt based on a dead locksmith's scribbles. Watch your mouth, Luca said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. I'm saying what everyone's thinking. Marco stepped closer. She's not one of us. She's a civilian who got caught up in something she doesn't understand. The smart play is to cut her loose. Or, he let the implication hang in the air. Mia's blood went cold. Or what? Kill me. Marco didn't even look at her. It would solve the problem. No target, no attacks. We could tell everyone the girl died in the cathedral. End this before more of our people get hurt. Get out. Luca's voice was dangerously soft.
Luca.
I said get out. Before I forget how long you've worked for me. Marco stared at his boss for a long moment, then turned and left, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mia wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop shaking. He's right, isn't he? I'm going to get people killed. Marco's scared, Luca said. Scared men make stupid decisions. Don't listen to him. But he has a point. Maybe I should. You should stay exactly where you are. Luca crossed the room and stood in front of her. I told you I'd keep you alive. That promise still stands. Mia looked up at him, surprised by the conviction in his voice.
Why?
I'm nobody. Like Marco said, I'm just a waitress who got caught up in your world. You're David Chen's daughter. That makes you somebody. Luca's gray eyes softened slightly. And you're braver than you think. Not many civilians would have walked into those tunnels without falling apart. I was terrified, but you did it anyway. That's courage. His hand lifted, almost touching her cheek, then dropped. We're close to the end of this, Mia. Don't give up now. The moment stretched between them. Charged, dangerous. Mia's heart hammered for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Then Luca stepped back, breaking the spell. Get some rest. Tomorrow we plan for the opera house. That night, Mia couldn't sleep. She wandered the estate's halls, her mind churning. Every shadow made her jump, Marco's words echoing in her head. The smart play is to cut her loose. She was heading back to her room when a figure emerged from the darkness. Not one of Luca's men. A woman, mid-40s, dressed in an expensive suit, with sharp features and calculating eyes. Hello, Mia. Her accent was Eastern European. Russian, maybe. Mia's hand went to her pocket, but she had no weapon, no way to defend herself. Who are you? Svetlana Volkov. We met briefly at the restaurant, though you were too busy being shot at to notice me. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'd like to offer you a deal. How did you get in here? Luca's security is good, but not perfect. I won't be long. Svetlana moved closer.
You're in danger, Mia.
Not just from my people or the other families. From Luca Romano himself. He's protecting me. He's using you. Svetlana's voice was smooth, persuasive. Once you lead him to the vault, what do you think happens? You become a witness to his family secrets. A loose end. Men like Luca don't leave loose ends.
Mia's mouth went dry.
You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself. Why did his man suggest killing you? Because that's what they do. That's who they are. Svetlana pulled a business card from her pocket. I'm offering you a way out.
Come work with me.
Help me find the vault first, and I'll give you $5 million and a new identity. You can disappear. Start over. Live. And betray Luca. Betray the man who kidnapped you? Who made you a target? Svetlana pressed the card into Mia's hand. Think about it. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, my offer expires, and you take your chances with Romano's mercy. She melted back into the shadows, leaving Mia alone with the card burning in her palm. Mia was still standing there, frozen, when she heard footsteps. She shoved the card into her pocket just as Luca appeared, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, the most casual she'd ever seen him. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. Bad dreams. It wasn't entirely a lie. He studied her face. You look shaken. Did something happen? Tell him. Part of her screamed. Tell him about Svetlana. But another part, the part that had heard Marco's suggestion to eliminate her, stayed silent. Just thinking about tomorrow, she said. The opera house. Luca nodded slowly, like he didn't quite believe her. It's going to be dangerous. The vault is there, which means everyone will be converging on it. I need you to promise me something. What? If things go wrong, if we're separated, you run. You don't look back, you don't try to help. You just survive. His expression was intense. Promise me. Why do you care? The question came out before Mia could stop it. I'm just a job to you. A means to an end. You were. Luca's voice was quiet. But you're not anymore. He turned and walked away, leaving Mia alone with two offers, Svetlana's card in one pocket and her locket in the other. One promised safety. The other promised. What? Trust? Something more. Mia touched the spiral on her arm and wondered what her father would tell her to do. Then she realized he'd already told her. Through every clue, every hidden message, every symbol carved in stone. Finish what I started, his voice whispered in her memory. See it through to the end. Mia pulled out Svetlana's card, tore it in half, and let the pieces fall to the floor. She'd made her choice. The Teatro Magnifico stood like a decaying monument to forgotten grandeur. Its facade was crumbling, windows shattered, the marquee long since collapsed. But in the moonlight, Mia could still see traces of its former beauty, ornate carvings, marble columns, the ghost of elegance. 3 entry points, Luca said, studying the building through binoculars from their position across the street. Marco's team takes the east side.
Angelo, west.
We go through the front. What if it's a trap? Tony asked. It's definitely a trap. Luca lowered the binoculars. The question is whether we're walking into it or setting one of our own. They'd prepared for this. Extra men, extra weapons, every precaution Luca could think of. But Mia saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand never strayed far from his gun. He knew this was where everything would come to a head. Stay close to me, Luca told Mia as they crossed the empty street. And if shooting starts, you get behind cover and stay there. The opera house's front doors had been chained shut, but bolt cutters made quick work of them. Inside, the lobby was a time capsule of decay, faded velvet ropes, shattered chandeliers, layers of dust thick as snow. The basement, Luca said, consulting the photograph. That's where my grandfather would have built it. They found the stairs behind what had once been the coat check. Down they went, flashlights cutting through absolute darkness. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing against Mia's chest like a physical weight. The basement was massive, a labyrinth of storage rooms, dressing areas, and maintenance tunnels. But Luca moved with certainty, following a path only he could see. Then they found it. Behind a false wall in the deepest sub-basement, revealed when Tony pushed aside an old costume rack, a steel door. Unmarked, imposing, with a complex locking mechanism that gleamed despite decades of darkness. "This is it," Luca breathed. Mia stepped forward, studying the lock. It was unlike anything she'd seen before, multiple layers, requiring both a combination and a physical key. But the symbols etched around the dial were familiar. Her father's code. "I can open it," she said. "How long?" 5 minutes. Maybe 10-inch. Luca nodded to his men. "Set up defensive positions. If anyone followed us." The explosion cut him off. The blast came from upstairs, shaking dust from the ceiling. Then gunfire, automatic weapons, multiple shooters. "We've got company," Marco's voice crackled over the radio. "East side's compromised. At least 20 hostiles. West side, too." Angelo shouted through the comm. "They're everywhere."
Luca grabbed Mia arm.
"Open it."
Now.
Her hands shook as she worked the lock, trying to block out the chaos erupting above them. More explosions. Screaming. The staccato rhythm of gunfire getting closer. There in the building, Tony yelled, taking position at the stairs. "Boss, we need to move." "Not without the vault." Luca returned fire up the stairwell. "Mia, how close?" "Almost there." She could feel the mechanism responding, tumblers clicking into place. "Just a few more." Dark figures poured down the stairs. Volkov's men, at least a dozen, with Svetlana herself at the lead. Her cold eyes found Mia. "You made the wrong choice." The basement erupted in gunfire. Tony went down first, catching 3 rounds in the chest. 2 more of Luca's men fell before they could even raise their weapons. Luca shoved Mia behind the costume rack and engaged, his movements precise and lethal. But they were outnumbered 3-1. Mia pressed herself against the vault door, her ears ringing from the percussion of gunfire. She watched in horror as Luca took a bullet to the shoulder, stumbling but not falling. He kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting even as blood soaked his shirt. Another of his men dropped. Then another. Svetlana advanced, reloading calmly. "It's over, Romano. Your men are dead upstairs. Surrender the girl, and maybe I let you bleed out peacefully." Luca's answer was a bullet that missed Svetlana's head by inches. She smiled. "Loyal to the end. Foolish, but I respect it." She raised her gun, aiming at Luca's head. Something inside Mia snapped. She'd been terrified for days. Hunted, shot at, treated like a helpless damsel who needed protecting. But she was David Chen's daughter, the man who'd outsmarted the Chicago mob for 20 years. The man who'd built an impossible puzzle that had led them here. She wasn't helpless. She never had been. The old costume rack beside her was on wheels. Mia grabbed it and shoved with everything she had. The massive rack, laden with decades of rotting costumes and props, rolled across the floor and slammed into Svetlana just as she pulled the trigger. The shot went wild. The rack crashed down on top of her and 2 of her men, trapping them. Luca down.
Mia screamed.
He dropped without question. Mia grabbed a fallen pistol, Tony's, still warm, and fired 3 shots at the overhead pipes running along the ceiling. Ancient corroded steam pipes that had been under pressure for who knew how long. They exploded like bombs. Scalding steam filled the basement, blinding and burning Volkov's men. They scattered, screaming, disoriented. Luca was back on his feet instantly, firing through the white cloud with deadly accuracy. When the steam cleared, 7 of Svetlana's men were dead. The others had retreated up the stairs, dragging their wounded. Svetlana herself was pinned under the costume rack, her leg twisted at an unnatural angle. She glared at Mia with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is." Mia kept the gun trained on her. "For you, anyway." Luca appeared at her side, his left arm hanging useless. "Nice shot." "I was terrified." "I know." You did it anyway. He looked at her with something like admiration. Then his expression hardened as more footsteps echoed above. We've got more company. Can you open the vault? I already did, Mia turned. In the chaos, she'd forgotten. The lock had clicked open just before Svetlana appeared. While you were fighting? Luka's eyebrows rose. Then he smiled, actually smiled, and it transformed his face. You're full of surprises, Mia-chan. Together, they pulled open the heavy steel door. Beyond it, a small room. And inside that room, stacked floor to ceiling, were crates.
Hundreds of them.
Gold bars gleamed in the flashlight beam. Cash, jewelry, bonds, a fortune beyond imagination. $300 million. Maybe more. But Mia's eyes were drawn to something else. In the center of the room, on a pedestal, sat a leather journal. She picked it up, hands trembling. The first page was in her father's handwriting. To my daughter Mia, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for the secrets. I'm sorry for the danger. But I need you to understand, this fortune was built on blood. Your blood, if the wrong people found it. I hid it not to steal it, but to bury it. Let it stay buried. Some treasures cost more than they're worth. Live your life, baby girl. Be free. That's all I ever wanted for you. Tears blurred Mia's vision. Her father hadn't been a thief. He'd been trying to end the cycle of violence. Footsteps thundered above. More enemies converging. Luka looked at the fortune, then at Mia, then at the journal in her hands. Your call, he said quietly. We take it and fight our way out. Or. Mia looked at the gold, at the journal, at Luka's blood-soaked shoulder. At the men who died just to get them this far. And she made her choice. We can't take it, Mia said. Luka stared at her like she'd lost her mind. What? Don't you see? Mia clutched her father's journal to her chest. This is why people keep dying. Your grandfather, my father, your men, tonight. Everyone who knows about this vault becomes a target. It never ends. That fortune is my family's legacy. It's a curse. Mia's voice echoed in the small room. My father understood that. That's why he hid it. Not to steal it, but to bury it forever. Above them, the sounds of fighting intensified. More crews had arrived. She could hear different languages shouting, different factions tearing the opera house apart searching for what they'd found. Luka grimaced, his wounded shoulder bleeding freely. Mia, we don't have time for philosophy. We need to move this before. Before what? Before the Volkovs get it? The Triads? The Bratva? Mia gestured at the crates. Whoever takes this will have every crime family in America hunting them. The violence won't stop. It'll just get worse. Then we use it to consolidate power. End the fighting by being strong enough that no one dares challenge us. That's not how it works. Mia moved between Luka and the fortune. Power like this? It doesn't end wars. It starts them. My father knew that. He spent 15 years running, hiding, keeping the secret because he understood what would happen if anyone found it. Luka's gray eyes blazed. Your father was a coward who stole from my family and ran. The words hung in the air like a slap.
Mia S. Joe tightened.
My father was brave enough to do what you can't. Walk away. Walk away from $300 million. Walk away from the blood. She opened the journal, showing him the words written there. He didn't want this life for me, and I won't take it. You don't have a choice. Luka's control finally shattered. Every family in Chicago knows you're connected to this vault. Even if we leave it, they'll never stop hunting you. They'll torture you, kill you, just to make sure you're not hiding it somewhere else. The only way you survive is if we take this fortune and use it to buy your safety. Or, Mia said quietly, we make sure there's nothing left to find. Understanding dawned in Luka's eyes.
No.
Mia, don't. She was already moving. In the corner of the vault room sat several old gas canisters, fuel for emergency generators, probably, stored decades ago and forgotten. Mia grabbed one, surprised by how light it was. Still some liquid inside, sloshing. Stop. Luka lunged for her, but his wounded shoulder made him slow. Mia twisted the cap off and began pouring gasoline over the crates. The acrid smell filled the small space immediately. This is insane. Luca grabbed her wrist with his good hand. You're destroying your only leverage, my only chance at a normal life. Mia wrenched free and kept pouring. Don't you get it? This money has cost enough. My father, your grandfather, your men. How many more people have to die? How many more will die if we take this? The gasoline spread across the floor, soaking into wooden crates, pooling around gold bars. Luca's face was twisted with anguish. Not over the money, Mia realized. Over something deeper. This was my family's. The last piece of my grandfather. If you destroy it, you'll finally be free, Mia's voice softened. Free from the past. Free from fighting over ghosts and old grudges. Free to build something new. An explosion shook the building.
Closer now.
Footsteps thundering down the stairs. They're coming, Luca said hoarsely. If you do this, we have nothing. No fortune to negotiate with. No leverage. We'll be fighting our way out with whatever ammunition we have left. I know, Mia pulled out a lighter. She'd found it in Tony's pocket when she took his gun. Her hands were steady now, certain. But at least we'll be fighting for something real. Not just money. She looked at Luca, really looked at him. Saw past the Mafia boss to the man beneath. Tired, wounded, carrying the weight of his family's bloody legacy. You said I was brave, she whispered. Prove you are too. Let it go. For a long moment, Luca just stared at her. Then at the fortune surrounding them. Then back at her face, illuminated by the flashlight beam, determined and unafraid. You're going to get us killed, he said finally. Maybe, Mia smiled sadly. Or maybe we finally live. She flicked the lighter. The flame danced in her hand, small and fragile and powerful. Mia. Luca's voice was rough with something that might have been fear. Or admiration. She dropped the lighter. The gasoline caught instantly. Flames raced across the floor, climbing the crates, consuming decades of accumulated wealth in seconds. The heat was immediate and intense. Smoke began filling the vault. Move! Luca grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the door. They stumbled into the basement as the vault behind them became an inferno. The leather journal was still clutched in Mia's other hand, the only thing she'd saved. Her father's final words. Behind them, gold melted. Cash turned to ash. Bonds dissolved into smoke. $300 million burning like kindling. Luca looked back at the flames, then at Mia. His expression was unreadable, shock, anger, loss, and something else. Something like wonder. You're absolutely insane, he said. I learned from my father, Mia squeezed his hand. Now can we please get out of here before this whole building comes down? A smile tugged at Luca's lips despite everything. Yeah, let's go. They ran for the stairs as the vault's fire spread, consuming the opera house's ancient wooden infrastructure. Behind them, Mia could hear shouts of alarm as the rival crews realized what was happening. The treasure they'd all been hunting for was turning to smoke and ashes. And somehow, running through flames with Luca Romano's hand in hers, Mia felt freer than she had in her entire life. The opera house was an inferno by the time they reached the ground floor. Flames consumed the old building with terrifying speed, feeding on decades of dry wood and rotting fabric. Smoke filled the air, thick and choking. Rival crews fled in chaos, Volkov's men, the Triads, the Bratva, all abandoning their posts as the structure groaned and began to collapse. No one was thinking about the vault anymore. They were thinking about survival. Luca and Mia burst through a side exit into the alley. Angelo was there with the SUV, engine running. Marco stumbled out behind them, his face blackened with soot. The vault. Marco gasped. Gone, Luca said flatly. All of it. Marco stared at Mia, his expression shifting from shock to rage. You saved our lives. Luca cut him off. Get in the car.
Now.
They peeled away as the opera house's roof caved in with a thunderous crash, sending sparks spiraling into the night sky like dying stars. The next 48 hours were a blur of medical attention, debriefings, and tense phone calls. Luca's shoulder required surgery. 3 of his men had died in the firefight, with 5 more wounded. The losses hit him hard. Mia could see it in the way he stared at nothing during the quiet moments. But the aftermath brought something unexpected: silence. Without the vault to fight over, the rival families retreated. Svetlana was arrested by the FBI after hospital staff reported her gunshot wounds. The Triads and Bratva, with nothing to gain, pulled back to their territories. The war everyone had expected never materialized. Because there was nothing left to war over. Marco still wouldn't look at Mia. She'd heard him arguing with Luca twice, his voice sharp with betrayal. $300 million. Gone because of her. But Luca's response had been quiet and final. No. Gone because it needed to be. A week after the fire, Luca found Mia in the estate's garden. She was sitting on a stone bench, her father's journal open in her lap, reading his words for the 100th time. "How's the shoulder?" she asked without looking up. "Better." He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "The doctors say full recovery in 6 weeks." "Good." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the manicured lawn. So different from the smoke and flames of the opera house. "I've been thinking," Luca said finally, "about what you said, about being free." Mia closed the journal. "And you were right," he turned to face her. "I've spent my entire life chasing my grandfather's legacy, fighting his wars, protecting his empire. I never stopped to ask if any of it mattered. And now I'm asking." His gray eyes held hers. "What do you do when everything you've built your identity around turns to ash?" "You build something new." Mia's voice was soft. "Something that's actually yours." Luca reached out and took her hand. His touch was gentle, hesitant, so different from the man who'd grabbed her wrist in the restaurant a lifetime ago. "I need to tell you something," he said. "When you dropped that lighter, when you destroyed the vault, I was furious, devastated. That fortune represented everything my family had worked for, everything I thought I needed. I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be," he squeezed her hand. "Because in that moment, watching $300 million burn, I realized something. The gold was never the treasure. It was you." Mia's breath caught. "You walked into my world knowing nothing about it," Luca continued. "And somehow, in 1 week, you did what I couldn't do in 35 years. You saw through the violence and greed to what actually mattered. You weren't afraid to burn it all down to save something real." He lifted her hand to his lips. "You saved me, Mia-chan. Not from bullets or rival families. From myself." Tears spilled down Mia's cheeks. "I was just a waitress serving drinks. I didn't know what I was doing half the time." "You knew exactly what you were doing." Luca brushed a tear away with his thumb. "You followed your father's clues because you trusted him. You stayed when you could have run, because you're brave. And you destroyed a fortune because you understood that some things, freedom, peace, life, are worth more than gold." "So what happens now?" Mia whispered.
Now.
Luca smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "Now we figure out who we are without the vault, without the legacy, without the past." He pulled her closer. "I'm thinking maybe I get out of the family business. Invest in something legitimate. Something that doesn't require guns and bodyguards." "That's a big change." "I've got a good consultant." His eyes sparkled. "She's good at solving impossible problems." Mia laughed through her tears. "I don't know anything about business. You know about courage. About doing the right thing even when it's hard. About seeing what matters." Luca's expression grew serious. "I love you, Mia. I think I started falling the moment you shoved that costume rack at Svetlana. Definitely by the time you set my family fortune on fire." "That's a weird moment to fall in love with someone." "You're a weird woman," he grinned. "Perfect for me." Mia thought about her tiny apartment, her waitressing job, the life she'd left behind. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, Someone who'd walked through fire and faced down crime families. Someone her father would be proud of. She kissed Luca Romano under the setting sun, and it felt like coming home. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "You infuriating, complicated mafia boss." "Ex-mafia boss," he corrected. "I'm retired. We'll see how long that lasts." Luca laughed and pulled her into his arms, and Mia knew, whatever came next, they'd face it together. She'd walked into Valentino's restaurant as a broke waitress with a mysterious tattoo. She was walking out as the woman who'd rewritten a legacy, ended a war, and captured the heart of Chicago's most dangerous man. Some treasures, she'd learned, couldn't be locked in vaults. The real ones were held in moments like this, in trust, in love, in the courage to let go of the past and embrace an uncertain future. And that was worth more than all the gold in the world.